Hi, my name is Joel Comiskey, and someone has said that you need to fail at least 3 times in small group ministry to get it right. And I would agree with that. And one of my failures came when I was in Quito, Ecuador at the El Baton Church. I was part of the pastoral team, and we decided to start like 5 groups simultaneously. And so we picked some key leaders and just let them go. Well, most of them just basically let go of their small group ministry because we didn't coach them. We didn't really care for them. We didn't offer them on-site help, and they basically just faded away. And I learned from that situation about the importance of infrastructure coaching, making sure you have a system in place. And I'd like to talk to you now about coaching and coaching structures and also the frequency of coaching. Let me just give you an example of a pastor who wants to start a small group ministry. That pastor would go through a time of pre-transition, laying the groundwork. And then the transition is when that pastor gathers key leaders and starts a pilot group. Now that pilot group with maybe, 5, 6, 7 potential teams, leadership teams, would meet between 4 months and a year together, and the pastor would lead that group just like a normal cell group. The pastor would be the facilitator of that group. But then let's just say in 9 months the group multiplies to, let's just say, 4 groups. Then the pastor would turn into the coach of those leaders, and the pastor would be the first coach or supervisor. Now the pastor I would recommend meet monthly with each of those leaders, calling them, meeting via Zoom, maybe one-on-one, but also would ask those leaders to come together in a group meeting once a month. When those groups multiply to 10, then the pastor would raise up 2 supervisors. And that's when you're getting into models, because when you have 2 supervisors, the pastor would then coach the supervisors, and those supervisors would then in turn supervise or coach the leaders. And basically that's called the 5x5 model, because it says that for every 5 leaders, there needs to be a supervisor. For every 5 section leaders, there should be a zone pastor. For every 5 zone pastors, there should be a district pastor. Now, those numbers are not exact. I say 5x5, but those numbers can vary. Another way to name that model is the Jethro model, because you remember Jethro's advice to Moses was, Moses, you're doing too much. People need to be in groups of 10, but also he said 50s, hundreds, and thousands. And basically the 50s, the hundreds, the thousands are those coaching models, the section leaders, the zone leaders, and the district leaders. And that word section literally is a geographical term. The zone is a geographical term. District pastor is geographical. And by the way, I love that model, the Jethro model or 5x5, because you can easily map it out. It's very clear. Now, another coaching structure is the G12 model. Now, I studied this model that came out of Bogota. I wrote a book called Groups of 12. The idea here, the 2 main ideas is that anyone can become a leader, and get this, any leader can become a potential supervisor. Is that a leader will try to multiply their groups 12 times and then coach or supervise the fruit of their multiplication. In this model, you can multiply across the city basically homogeneously. I don't really promote this model, number one, because I think multiplying your groups 12 times is way too much for a busy lay person while leading their small group. So they never stop leading a small group, but they then care for those 12. The second reason I don't promote this model is because, at least in Bogota, they became really wrapped up in the number 12. There was a special anointing on getting 12. And I think that many numbers in the Bible are valuable, not just 12. But probably the most important reason why I don't promote this model is because Bogota began to feel like they had the true model. You had to follow their model completely. They talked about adopting and not adapting. And there was a lot of divisions that were caused through this model. I really believe in adapting. I believe in following principles. In fact, I wrote a book called From 12 to 3 because I adapted the groups of 12. I said, hey, it's way too much to coach 12 people or to multiply 12 times. But I did like the fact that the G12 leader was leading his cell group, never stopped leading the group. So what I started to promote was the leader continuing to lead the group while multiplying 3 times. That is, the focus would be to care for 3 leaders, up to 3 leaders. Now, even that model breaks down because if the leader doesn't want to coach those new leaders, then the pastor needs to make sure there is a supervisor to coach the fruit of multiplication. So there is no perfect model, but I think that there are some key principles. And one of those principles is that the coach or the supervisor doesn't leave the battle. In other words, in the old version from David's show, it was often that the leader would stop leading a cell once they became a supervisor. I think more and more cell churches try to keep that supervisor in the battle by at least being in a cell group, being part of a leadership team, or leading a cell group. And I think that's really important. How often then should the supervisor meet with those leaders under their care? And I would say once a month, meeting with each of those leaders in a personal one-on-one time, whether that's by telephone, whether that's by Zoom, or even meeting that person after church. And then the coach meeting with the group, the leadership group, once a month. So I think that is a good frequency of meeting. In another video, I talk about the content of coaching. But let me just say that one way to coach small group leaders is to visit them in their small group. Now, it used to be a lot more frequent when the coach was not leading a group or in a group, but still I think it is important for the coach to visit groups. But I always say, tell the leader before you actually visit. That's important. That's just simple politeness. The other thing is it's important for the coach to blend in to the group. I mean, don't try to act like you know more than the group. Be real, share your heart, participate. When talking with the leader after the group or another time, be sure to start with the positive. Talk about all the good things that you saw in the group. And then if you want to share a suggestion, start with, hey, can I share something with you? Ask for permission, in other words. When the leader says yes, well, then you can say, hey, I noticed that you were talking too much, or that maybe you didn't allow so-and-so to share, so on and so forth. But really over compliment, and then make sure you ask for permission when talking about your suggestions. Pastor, I believe that God is going to use you greatly in your small group ministry. Just remember that coaching is a key element. God bless you. If you like this video, please click on like and subscribe to our channel, but also check out the resources on our website.